What is up, everybody? This is the Bhangra Podcast. My name is Nimit Desai. Today I'll be sitting down with two former captains of the Real Punjabiz, Harji and Luvreet, hailing all the way from San Diego, California. See if we can break down what makes DRP DRP.
All right, let's get started. So now I've been watching DRP for a long time, and I feel like you guys have been dancing on a team forever. Like, I feel like I've seen you two dancing on a team for a long, long time. How'd you guys get started with DRP? And sort of like, what was your dance career like before DRP? How'd you get involved?
For me, DRP was the first team that I joined. The first Bhangra competition I actually ever watched was Bruin 2012. And I didn't even know competitive Bhangra existed before that point. I went to watch them with my family and I found it intriguing. Because the coordination of music, choreo, formations is really similar to what I did with marching band in high school. And then fortunately, when I went to San Diego for school, I had some older friends on DRP that pushed me to attend tryouts. And then once I started coming to practices and dancing, I found that I really enjoyed it.
All right, Luvreet, how about you?
Okay, so I was put into Bhangra classes in middle school, maybe when I was 12 or 13 with my sister. And I probably did that for a month, and then I ended up hating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after that, I kind of stayed away from it. And then at some point in college, I heard about a new team starting up at Berkeley. So this is when I was a junior, and I decided to just try out because I wanted to try something different. And I ended up really liking the dance, and I met a lot of great people through my time with Cal. And then after I graduated, I wanted to continue dancing, and I came to UCSD for grad school. And I joined DRP in 2011. And initially when I joined, I thought maybe I'd just dance for a couple of years, either until I got too old or too busy or it wasn't fun anymore. But none of that stuff happened. I mean, I did get older, but that stuff didn't happen. And I'm just graduating from UCSD this year, and this is my last year on the team.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so both of you guys are former captains, right, of DRP?
Yeah, we captained together, 2015 to 2016.
Right. So, what kind of pushed you guys to want to take on a leadership role? A lot of people might want to come to the team, maybe take a step back, be sort of like a dancer, ride out the wave. But what forced you guys, or what prompted you guys to try and take on that sort of leadership role with DRP?
So for me, it was really the confidence that the previous captain had in my abilities. I wasn't so sure that I could handle the responsibility of being a captain. And I actually thought that Luv should be captain because I thought he had a lot more experience, and was a better dancer than I was. But he told me he didn't want to be captain alone. And so since our previous captain Bhavin had so much confidence in me and Luv wanted a partner, I decided that I would take up that role.
All right, what about you, Luv?
I mean, after dancing for a couple of years, I started getting into some of the set design aspects, like doing choreo, coming up with formations and whatnot. And even before I became captain with DRP, I would help out with that stuff sometimes for routines. I wanted, the challenge of taking on that role, but in a greater capacity. At the same time, though, I was a grad student in a team with a bunch of undergrads, basically. So I felt like if I was captain, in a way, I might be taking that opportunity away from someone else who was an undergrad on the team who might just have a 1-year window, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to also do it with somebody else.
Leading into set design and stuff like that, DRP has a really specific style of Bhangra. Where did you guys originate that form? Where did that technique sort of come from? And maybe who started it, or is that always the way that DRP is danced?
I mean, so I think in terms of DRP style, I feel the best people to answer that question in terms of where it came from would be the founders. So in the early years of DRP, it was part of a West Coast scene, in particular a SoCal scene that had several big teams like Tulsa Junction or Share Foundation. Later there was Empire or APD. And even within California, there was like a stylistic divide between NorCal teams, which were more traditional. Like there were several live teams there, like Virse de Vares or Hire Punjab De, and SoCal teams, which were more modern. Like SoCal teams typically had like an in-your-face style that was like predicated on like nukta and like audience interaction, that sort of thing. They had a lot of stunts in their routines, a lot of gimmicks, and DRP like emerged in that like atmosphere.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. So do you feel like DRP, and this is during your sort of tenure on the team, do you think that the dancing form has changed at all, or do you feel like people really want to develop the same sort of style that you guys have been dancing for years past?
I mean, so DRP has definitely evolved as well. So, I mean, like the circuit's definitely changed from where it was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. The same is true with DRP. Like when I joined the team in 2011, it was definitely really different from how it is now. Like maybe back in 2011, there was definitely a point that we made to like try to have like a gimmick in each segment or something like that. Whereas now that's not as important. Like back when I joined, it wasn't as important to have like a segment dedicated to like Fumnia or Jummer or something. Like we might have a 16 count transition for Jummer. Whereas now there's more of a commitment to having a balanced routine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think another kind of interesting thing or unique thing about DRP is that you guys are co-ed, but in terms of energy output, I mean, I don't think anybody has seen a co-ed team that has the kind of energy output that you guys have start to finish throughout your set. Like what do you guys do at practice that allows you to have that sort of stamina? How do you train your dancers? What kind of mindset do you guys put in those people? Because from someone who has tried to run a co-ed team, dancer stamina is always an issue. No matter where you are, no matter what team you're on, at some point it'll always be a problem. So how do you guys really go about addressing that?
We try to dance as much as possible at every practice. So during the school year, we have practices 4 times a week, with each practice running about 3 hours. And then each practice would consist of a minimum of 3 full-out run-throughs. Oftentimes we would do 2 at the beginning after we warmed up and stretched, and then we would do 1 at the end. And then in between, as we finished teaching or cleaning segments, we would hit 3 full-out segment run-throughs back to back to back with no breaks. And so essentially what we were trying to do is just push our limits and overcome any physical or mental barriers that we had.
Wow, really? Three run-throughs every practice, man. I don't know how do you guys maintain dancers? Like, this is like, how does anybody stay on the team? I mean, that's crazy. 3 run-throughs of practice, every practice.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Definitely at the beginning, there was people that would just not go all out every time. And it really was up to us to make sure that our stamina was up to par. And then as we did those run-throughs, we would have to tell people, hey, pick up your legs. During the run-through, right? Pick up your legs, smile, right? Everything that you would want to see on stage, we needed to make sure that it was there during each of those run-throughs.
Okay. I mean, like, I can see how that works now, considering, like, now that you tell me you guys do 3 run-throughs every practice, it makes a lot of sense as to how you guys have so much energy on stage, but I don't know, man. If I tried to sell that to my team, I don't know how that would go. There would be like an impeachment process. Something would go on. I don't know. You guys are out of control. But another thing that's really unique to you guys is that you guys have a real focus on production value, which is something that you might see in the fusion circuit, but you don't really see on the Bhangra circuit, except for like maybe Empire. Why do you guys have? Why do you guys prefer such a production heavy set? Do you feel like you ever get worried about someone labeling you as non-traditional, and that might be hurting you at different comps or things like that? Or, what do you think production gives you as an advantage over other teams?
Simply put, I think production is entertaining. We know that people are paying to watch us dance, and we want them to be entertained. Production allows us to draw the audience into our world and our vision. And then from a judging perspective, it allows us to set ourselves apart and make our whole routine more memorable. Personally, as for the you're not traditional critiques, I understand them and I think they're valid, but I think the diversity in our approaches to Bhangra is what keeps the circuit interesting. Like, I really enjoy watching SPD and NJ, but I also enjoy watching KPGD and PK, right? Our team is interested in innovation. We're interested in pushing the envelope to create that holistic experience every time we step on stage. Production aids us in that mission.
Right. And I mean, and one thing I have to ask you guys about is like, how much time do you guys spend doing production as opposed to, in addition, I'm assuming, to practice? Because, you know, I remember a couple years ago you guys built a tractor and then put that on stage, and then you had somebody doing jumps on it at the end. I mean, that's just, like, that had to be a solid tractor, you know, that couldn't have just been made out of, like, paper or something. So, you know, how much time do you guys spend, you know, leading up to a big competition like, let's say, Bruin, on production? You know, is that something that it takes away a lot of your practice time, or do you guys do that in addition to practice?
Yeah, so it's usually in addition to practice. So, in my first 3 years on the team, we did spend a lot of time building these large structures, but these past 2 years, we've kind of moved towards, building smaller props that have similar impact, like the ribbons or the smoke dolls. And we found that allows us to make sure we have enough time to practice and relax, not only during the year as we're preparing for a competition, but also during the competition weekend.
Okay. What is your process to coming up with these gimmick ideas? Because I think out of, you know, the last 5 years or so, you know, when you think about big time gimmicks, you think about DRP. So, you know, like the smoke dole, the tractor, you know, like the list goes on and on and on and on. You know, how do you guys come up with all these gimmicks, and like, do you guys have a process that you guys do this with, or is it just like you're walking down the street, something inspires you, and you're like, oh man, we should do that, that'd be crazy?
I think it kind of just depends, and I'll let Harji add on to this later. So typically, I mean, what we started doing in the past 2 years is like in terms of like song selection, in terms of gimmick ideas and whatnot. Before competitions, we'll create like a Google Doc, and we'll let anyone from the team like add song ideas or add gimmick ideas that they have. Like in terms of certain specific things, like for the tractor, like we had a song idea in mind, and the lyrics like played off of that. Like there's a tractor and the lyrics of the song. The smoke dolls actually came from like a religious video that someone posted in our Facebook group. Yeah, which is really random, but like that's where we got the idea from. Like occasionally we'll get ideas for stunts through like hip hop routine videos, then that we like try to adapt to Bhangra a little bit, so stuff like that.
I mean, and also like I know you guys did like the ribbon gimmick, or I guess it was more of a segment than it was a gimmick. You know, how often do you guys pull from other dance forms to try and find, you know, like something that's a little bit different? You know, do you guys spend a lot of time watching videos outside of our circuit?
Yeah, I spend a good amount of time watching videos outside of our circuit, and I think it comes from all sorts of performing arts, not only other dance circuits, but also magic, music, like color guard and marching band, and theater. I'd say I spend about 25% of my time watching other performances, and then about 75 watching Bhangra videos.
Do you guys feel like, because I know I feel this way, where I watch a Bhangra video and I say, oh man, maybe they did something cool, but, you know, now we can't really do that because like, you know, they just did it, right? So,
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult for me to sit there and be like, oh yeah, we should totally use that when they just did it. So,
Right.
I don't know. I guess trying to pull from live teams, pulling from other circuits, you know, that definitely helps. You know, moving on a little bit, you know, I think another thing that DRP, you know, to kind of round out the end of set design, another thing you guys are known for is formations, right? You guys are a very formation heavy team. You guys have a lot of, you know, if you watch your set, you guys have a lot of layering. You guys have a lot of, you know, a lot of movement around stage and a lot of formation concepts, right? Like real mechanisms that you can really see working. I know somebody posted on BTF of this like formation app or like, you know, or and there's a lot of different ways that a lot of people teach formations. How do you guys go about it? How do you guys go about making them?
Yeah, so yeah, we definitely used that formation app. So it was actually created by one of our former captains, Rohan. And we're definitely lucky to have it. It definitely helps us like visualize formations and like what will work. In terms of like what I do personally, like one of the things that I like to aim for is I like to try to come up with what I call like 16 count formations. So like what I mean by that is it's like a formation that'll take 16 counts to complete. Like sometimes it'll be like a 4 count movement followed by like another 4 count movement that's similar. Overall it takes 16 counts, which is different from what I see a lot of teams doing, which is typically like a 4 count movement or like an 8 count movement where they'll like shift from one shape to another shape. And I feel like a lot of the times teams will have like movement simply for the sake of having movement. Like in terms of like thinking of formations, I don't know, a lot of times I'll just listen to like a song or a segment that we're working on, and I don't know, I'll just like listen to it again and again for like an hour or 2 hours, and maybe something will come to me. Sometimes I'll just be in class and like drawing shapes like X's and O's, and then maybe something will pop out. But it just takes time.
No, actually, that happened to me. I was sitting in class. I was drawing up formations for one of our sets, and the guy sitting next to me is looking at my paper, and he's like, "Dude, this has nothing to do with the lecture. Like, what are you writing on this piece of paper?" He's just seeing like a bunch of X's and O's and just like a bunch of arrows and stuff. It was hilarious. Yeah, but I definitely feel that. You know, you kind of just whenever it comes to you, it comes to you. But yeah, so I guess moving on from sort of the set design aspect. You know, you guys are a really long-lasting collegiate team. Like, you guys have been around for a really long time. And I think that's something that a lot of collegiate teams struggle with, considering there's so much dancer turnover. And so, you know, how do you deal with dancer turnover? How do you train your younger dancers? You know, do you guys have, like, sort of a system? I know CMU has a system where they have, like, a B team, and then, you know, you kind of graduate to the A team or something like that. Do you guys have a system like that? How do you guys deal with that sort of, you know, dancer inconsistency?
So we tried to implement something similar to that, but I would say it's like more informal than having like an A team and a B team. Like in my earlier years with the team, that dancer turnover was a much bigger issue because I would say most of the dancers that we had when they joined would stick with the team for 2 years. Gradually, the number of the dancers that we had that stuck with it for 4 years increased. And I think now that when we have new members who join, they see the senior members on the team able to successfully manage like their schoolwork, with the dance, with their social lives, and that makes them more inclined to want to do the same. So in the last couple years in particular, we've tried to field a larger team. Like last year, we had maybe like 30 active members on the team, and then this year again, it's maybe like 25 active members or so. And like the idea was, while the new members might not get the chance to dance immediately or like compete immediately, they would hopefully get that chance if they stuck with it in the following years. And then one of the things that we've been able to do is like both last year and this year, we had enough either like new members, first year dancers or second year dancers to send those guys, the first and second years, to a competition. So like this past year, we sent our newer members to Vegas. And last year, we sent them to West Coast Bhangra.
Yeah, so and in a sense, you know, I think one thing that a lot of people have an issue with when they try and have this sort of like, you know, formal or informal A team and B team concept is that sometimes the people on the B team might be a little bit less inclined, considering they don't have as many performance opportunities as, you know, some of the other members might have. So how do you sort of deal with that, maybe a little bit of that frustration? How do you kind of create a positive team environment around these people so that, you know, if they only perform once throughout the whole year, it's still a very meaningful performance?
I think a lot of it has to do with the way we run practices. So every practice is mandatory for every member. And at those practices, we ensure that we have a plan for both the people on the roster and the people off the roster. Right? So sometimes we would have members that had enough experience to teach others, but weren't experienced enough to be on the competitive team, teach those newer members form or choreo, whatever it was, right? And that gave them something to work on every time they came to practice. They felt that it mattered that they were there. It mattered that they were improving. And if they improved, they had a chance to make the next roster. Made it very clear that rosters weren't set competition to competition. And if a person expected to make a roster but wasn't going to make it, we made it clear to them through an individual conversation, private conversation, why they didn't make the roster. And so then they had something to work on, right? If I work on this thing, then I can make the next roster. I can compete next time. And that's what I think kept them coming back. A lot of it also had to do with the vibe that we try to have in terms of just our team as a whole. Try to include people in every activity that we do, right? So if a senior member is putting together choreo, they might ask a younger member to come along and help them with that, or formation, or if we're strategizing how we're going to format the layout of the set, they might help with that. I think for a number of younger members, the song suggestions was a great way to get involved. Because even though they didn't have enough Bhangra experience to contribute to a great extent, they knew what songs they liked listening to, so they could help in that manner.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I think that's a really important point, because a lot of people, when they see what it means to be a captain, they see it from a set design perspective, they see it from a technical perspective, but there's also a really huge social aspect and a really big responsibility, that you're using people's times properly, because it's a really big commitment on their part. So that's important that you bring up a point like that. Also, Love, I gotta call you out. Are you still wearing your what's it called? Your Bruin, what's it, wristband?
Yeah,
Are you still wearing that?
Gotta cling to it.
Got him.
Oh man, yeah. I didn't take mine off for like a month, but then after that, I was like, this thing has to go. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Trying to live in the past.
Yeah, you gotta live in the past. No, definitely. I agree with that. All right, so I guess we've been talking for a while, but to kind of close it out, even if you guys are sort of graduating or moving on from DRP in the near future, where do you think the DRP is trying to go from here? You guys have been very successful at Bruin. Is there another place where you guys are trying to find success? Is there another sort of goal that you feel like your team is really pushing for, or is the mindset still let's go to Bruin, let's win, let's place, because that's what you guys have been good at for the last 3 years?
Like you said, we're not active members anymore, right? So we'll be around to offer guidance, but really I think it's up to the team and their current captains to set their own goals. Personally, I'd love to see DRP continue to innovate and bring new ideas to stage. I think there's always room for growth and improvement.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, I guess last couple things. Were there any other teams this year that you really enjoyed watching, or any other performances that you think may not get enough love? And on the flip side, any performances that you feel like may have been a little overrated? If you guys are willing to talk a little shit, I mean, up to you. But
So I think in terms of like what was impressive, like nothing. In terms of teams who are overrated, I'd have to say like KPGD at Bruin right off the bat. Like that all year. I don't know. In terms of teams who are underrated, I think like DRP is probably at the top of my list.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a very that seems to be a biased list. I don't know. It seems a little bit weird that you would pick those teams out specifically. But it's all right. I get it. I've received the message. Yeah, I mean, now I'm glad that you've started this Buckeye DRP beef.
Let's go.
It'll last all through eternity from now on. Yeah. What about you, Harji?
I actually, I'll try to be a little bit more honest. I really liked Buckeye's routine at Berg this year. The first time I watched it, I was taken aback. I watched it again and again and again because of how I thought it was really innovative, and I want to create a set similar to that sometime in the future. I really liked it.
Yeah,
Love is
you
like,
didn't have to say me. You know that, right? Like you didn't have to say Arsenal. You could have just said any other team. Like I wasn't like asking. I mean, I was sort of asking for it, but like I didn't do it explicitly, right? No. But thank you. I appreciate that.
no, you're good. Yeah. Love is just like really happy because he gave his final thesis defense yesterday, okay. So he's like officially earned his PhD. So he's just like super on his high horse and shit.
Yeah. Dang. And anything that you didn't like in the circuit? Anything that you feel like needs to go? Either whether it be styles or types of sets, anything like that.
Oh man, I like the diversity. I think that's what makes it interesting. I think it'd just be great if everyone executed their vision better, right? So if like you have some great ideas, put in the time to make sure you have the stamina, you have the nakra to execute it well, right? Because I feel like a lot of ideas go to waste because teams don't spend the time doing that. And it's kind of sad to see because like you said earlier, you see a really cool idea and you just can't put it on stage again, right? Like I think Mob Chicago at Bruin has some great ideas. I found it really entertaining, but they just weren't clean, right? Yeah, just spend some time, make it happen. That's what I want to see.
All right, thank you guys so much for a good interview. Wish you guys all the best. Hopefully I see you guys at a competition soon. And if I'm competing against you guys, I hope you guys lose. So, yeah, thanks.
All right. Keep hoping, my friend.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you guys around.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. Do you have any ideas about what we should talk about? If so, email us at bhangrateamspodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the Bhangra Podcast. If you like this podcast, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you get the podcast automatically downloaded as soon as it hits the feed. And if you really want to help out the podcast, please leave a review on iTunes and let us know how we're doing. Shout out to Mideast Muslim Beast 14 for leaving us a review. Thanks so much, and hope to see you next time.